I had elliptical on my overrated, and I was like, I'm just being a hater.
Interesting.
Just being a hater.
I don't think you are a hater for
I
sure.
was just being, you know, me. It's being a Philly. I'm just in my blood now. Just weird. I was like in reading weird articles, like op-eds of like how elliptical like detrains your gait pattern. And I was like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, what the heck are we doing? Like, what?
Oh my god.
What? Every day we stray further from the truth in this field.
Every day. That's a perfect headline for this episode. Let's do it.
JT.
Wait, what are we jumping in for? What are we doing? What are we talking about?
What is it? What's it hitting for? Today, coming back around with some positivity, we are talking about our top 3 underrated or slept on pieces of equipment that we feel that you could probably use a little bit more in your program. So last episode, we talked about that overrated stuff where the juice probably isn't worth the squeeze. Our time is better spent elsewhere. On this one, time to take a look at your program and see, is there any space in here for these pieces of equipment? Because the boys at Pushin Performance say there's some bangers, so maybe I should think about it.
They are bangers. What are we defining underrated to be?
The opposite of overrated. All right, let's get into it. No.
Thank you, Coach.
I think our underrated is things that probably this is probably going to end up being a big personal bias list. Looking at mine, this is kind of a big personal bias list for me. But things that we like that we don't see show up in a lot of coaches' programs that we feel probably should. And again, they're not, at least looking at my list, they're not the end all be all. But for me, I was like just coming across things that I'm like, damn, I don't see a lot of people doing this, or even like myself, like, damn, I used to do this a ton. I don't do this anymore. Like, this is just a good exercise that I should at least think about before including into a program and not just totally write off. But is that kind of the way you went with your list?
Yeah, pretty much. I think just the understanding of certain things helped with this list. Like basically a lot of these things, I would look back early on in my career. I'm like, I would never do that. I would never use that. Why? Right. So now it's finding its way back into my program because of different intents that I have for it now.
Got you. So this is like your misunderstood list.
Early on, yeah.
Okay, yep. I like that.
Or underappreciated, I guess.
Underappreciated. I like that, and that's another good. You really are a thesaurus, man. This is another good definition that we could use, because I think there's a lot of things like that. Like it's very easy. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. It's very easy to get stuck in the trap of that path dependency. Like, hey, I'm barbell, dumbbell. That's it, and like that's the meat and potatoes of a lot of my programs. Like I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not. But I think it's like always assessing what you're doing, what you have in your gym, if you have the capabilities to change it, and saying like, all right, am I missing something?
Yeah.
Like, is there a piece of equipment in here that could really serve my population that I don't have?
Yeah. Before we jump into it, I think to call out what from the previous episode, like the point of this is to really, because you could argue what we just said about any piece of equipment, right? It could be definitely underappreciated, definitely underrated, and vice versa, like on literally any piece of equipment. The point of this is to really look at your own program and to see the exercises or pieces of equipment that you're using. Are you just married to that piece of equipment for X reason? I don't know. You answer that question. So I think just removing the biases and understanding why things are there and why you're using certain equipment, pieces of equipment or exercises.
Oof. Love it. All right. Let's dive in, bro. Let's dive right into it. What is your number 3 most underused, most underappreciated piece of equipment?
Long resistance bands.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I don't even know if that's the name. Superband? Let's call it Superbands.
Monster bands, super bands.
So in the previous episode, I mentioned mini bands as being an overrated piece of equipment. Underrated, I would consider for the longer resistance bands.
So what you're saying is that size matters.
Size does in fact matter.
That's tough.
Don't ask anybody else I've been with, but I would say the size does matter in this instance, right? So I look at it from the lens of, come on, Phil, chill.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that.
I wasn't either. Things just come out sometimes. I lost my train of thought. Lens of a coach.
Yeah, my bad.
And lens of a client. I think if I'm looking at both, for one, coaches that I see, I don't really see a lot of them using it, and also with the clients. So I've worked with a lot of people, very early on in their training age. Not a lot of them are aware of the capabilities it has. I show them literally like a pull down, putting it on top of a bar, like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So a lot of these experiences that I've had is like, I think it's not as what's the word I'm looking for? Advertised in ways you can actually use it. So,
got it. Okay, that's
my 2 cents there.
All right, so just not understanding the full scope. I actually had this on my overrated list initially. Initially, I had it on my overrated because, again, it depends on like everything. It depends on the lens at which you're looking at this piece of equipment through, right? And this is ultimately why I ended up taking it off. But I think, like, all right, what is it great at? Like, it's not great at driving hypertrophy. It's not great at like being able to progress. But what can it do, right? Like, not everyone has access to a cable stack. Not everyone has access to any sort of pulley system. Or if you do, you probably have one of them, and you're probably having 10 plus people in your class. Like, so there's like, when it comes to things like that, or when it comes to, and I totally forgot about using them for movement skill. And the things you can do with that there, whether it's like change of direction stuff, whether it's acceleration stuff. So yeah, I think there is a lot of inherent value in the monster bands, the super bands, whatever you want to call them. And it's because of what you're talking about. Like, in that moment, I wasn't even thinking about, oh shit, like you can do a ton of stuff with this.
Yeah. I see it more of like a higher benefit, lower risk type of thing. Like, whatever you do with it, it's probably not going to hurt you, like doing a 225 squat on a Bosu ball, right? Very portable. If you have a large class, you can buy a lot of them, very cheap. Put on some poles, put on each other's hands. So there's a lot of ways you can utilize that piece of equipment. So, and I don't see it very often.
I like it. Yeah, no, and that's another underlying layer to this. Like, if you're in a smaller gym, or if you don't have a big budget for your gym, like, I don't know how much bands cost, but they're not that expensive to get, a light, medium, and heavy band. And then if you only use them for some things, they were cheap. They're easy to store. If you use them for a ton of stuff, that's a pretty good investment.
Yeah.
Even though it obviously has its limitations. But okay.
It does.
Okay.
What you got?
Number 3. I'm going with the opposite of that. I'm going leg curl machine.
What's the opposite of low resistance bands?
Well, from a cost and a space perspective.
Okay.
It's expensive and it takes up a huge footprint in the gym.
Got it.
But leg curl machine, personally, I like the prone one where you're lying down, hitting the butt kick. Seated one works too. I'm not going to discriminate, but I personally like the prone one. Hit a little nap in between sets. But in my opinion, leg curl machine is the best option for knee dominant lower body pulling. For training the hamstrings, the best.
Okay.
You always jump to the screen and fought me. It is the best. It is the best. The best. I will die on this hill. It is accessible. It's scalable. It's easy to progress. It's unbelievably simple. Just brief aside here. My boy Josh Peacock just released a book, Fundamentals of Exercise. I'll put it in the show notes. You pick it up on Amazon. But I like how he defined simplicity and complexity. So he basically just defined the continuum as how many prerequisites. Such a hard word to say. How many prerequisites there are to do that movement, right? So looking at something like a Nordic curl versus a seated leg curl, beyond the strength quality prerequisites, now we're looking at like, can I get into hip extension? Can I maintain a neutral pelvic position because the position of my pelvis is going to change the length tension relationship on the hamstrings? Can I maintain a neutral rib cage position, right? Like, that's a prerequisite for movement. For a seated hamstring curl is just like, can I sit down? Like that's the prerequisite for movement, so it's gonna be a little bit more simple. But for me, like, I'm ass at Nordics, and I can sprint. Like I'm an okay sprinter. I can sprint and not get hurt. Knock on wood. I'm gonna go to the track this next Saturday and blow up. Now that I said that, but I suck at Nordics. I'm just flopping around on the ground. Right, I can do some ISO stuff, but doing a slider leg curl, a physio ball leg curl, a TRX leg curl is easy as hell, and I'm doing like sets of 20. Right, so with this seated leg curl variation or prone leg curl variation, whatever, now it allows me to actually progressively overload the movement. I can do eccentric overload stuff, right? I can go down on one, up on two. I can do tempo work. I can do rapid stuff, right? There's so many different ways I could use this piece of equipment, and I can overload it as much as I need to. But there's no end to how much I can load that pattern. And it's the same exact pattern as a Nordic. It's the same exact pattern as a leg curl. So for, again, knee dominant pulling, it's number one.
Okay. I like it. It's a little bit of a vulnerable position. I guess people just got to get used to it. So I like it though. I've actually been a big fan of that as of late. Hey, folks, as you can see,
right now.
We don't know each other's answers. I don't think we called that out earlier.
We do not. We did
not. Off the cuff. So genuine reaction.
These are very, very real reactions. It is a vulnerable position. You really got to trust your gym and your fellow gym goers.
If you take a nap, it doesn't matter. Right?
It is a little gross when you think about it. I don't want to stop and pause and think about how disgusting gym equipment is, but like putting your face on the pad of something that someone else has put their face on.
This is true.
It's like a bottom 10 experience, probably. But if it's going to get my hamstrings stronger, then I'm going to do what I have to do.
Hey, risk reward, right? Risk
reward. I'll get a staph infection for stronger hamstrings.
Oh man. Moving on. I like it. I like the hamstring. Ow. I should put that. All right. My number 2, right?
Hit it.
A Smith machine.
Oh, what's on my honorable mention? On my honorable mention?
We're talking underrated, right? So hear me out.
Talking.
There's a shift or pendulum swing for most things in our industry, right? We've been around for 30, 40 years. So there's been like a constant shift. Oh, Smith
like on this earth?
Yes, right. Smith machines are great. A few years later, Smith machines suck. I don't know where we're at now, but I think we're at that place where Smith machines are pretty cool. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think they're swinging. They're going to start. 2 years they'll probably swing back to overrated. Like we'll have gyms that are all Smith machines or something weird. But I like where you're going. They're swinging.
They're swinging, and the reason why I think why our industry poo-pooed on it was it removed the stability portion of it, right? And they're like, "Oh, Smith machine suck. Just do a back squat with a barbell. You use your stabilizers muscles more, right? Other muscles are working, which is great." So swinging it back, I'm like, shoot, that's great. I don't have to stabilize. Okay, let's improve this some absolute strength here, right? If I'm doing a rear foot elevated split squat, I don't have to worry about balancing. You see a lot of people trying to hold 2 dumbbells. Don't get this going. This Smith machine behind your back, put your foot behind you, let's go up and down, right? We're getting what we want with increasing strength on one leg. So that's just one example. You can do a row, an inverted row with it, which is nice. I'll load up.
Classic.
I'll load up each side with it too. I'm gonna do a row though, inverted row. You can do a push up if you have a client that's
scale that. Yeah.
Needs a way to save the wrist. Here we go with the wrist again.
There you go with the wrist
again. That neutral grip with the wrist. You can raise it, lower it. So push-ups nice on it, but it just removes the worry about stability. Sometimes you don't always need to challenge your stability for a lot of exercises. So I think understanding that it does that for you can yield you a lot of benefits with specific exercise you want to focus on.
That's 1000%, man. Like a lot of exercises do multiple things. Do all of those things matter? No, right? Like, okay, like just because an exercise is inherently less stable, okay, like, but probably doesn't matter. Like you said, is the goal increasing our max strength? So like, what's the max amount of load I can move? What's the max amount of force I can produce in this pattern? Well, if I'm more stable, I can produce more force, like inherently, right? So Smith machine is awesome for that. And I think, like, to your first point, I think if we do anything with this show, or we help anybody in any way with the show, I think one of the things is going to be, or hopefully, giving people the tools and the critical abilities to not get swung around by the pendulum of the industry. It's going to keep swinging. It's never going to stop. Like, that's just kind of the way the world works, right? Like, right now, Smith machines are cool. 10 years, they might suck again. Right now, training like an athlete is cool and it's hot. In 10 years, after a bunch of people who shouldn't have been doing plyos right out the gate get hurt, it's going to suck again. Right? But how can we stay in the middle and objectively assess things for what they are and what they're good at? But I think the way you're looking at the Smith machine now, it's like, no matter what happens, and someone opens like a Smith Zone training center that's all Smith machine focused, like, you're gonna know, like, yeah, it's all right. Like, it's good for some things, not great for everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I think on that note of the swing, like, being in the middle is what's important, but understanding why things swing from left to right is key, right? Just don't be blind to it, but why is it swinging this way? Why is it swinging that way? Stay in the middle.
Exactly.
It's pretty much like exploiting the pros and just highlighting the cons of things, right? That's how things swing.
Exactly. I love that. That's a bar. That's a bar. Also, Smith Zone. I trademarked that. So if you make a Smith machine only class, I'm going to sue you. Number 2. I'm worried this is your number 1. Jump rope.
It's not. I like it.
We really don't have anything on the same. How do we keep doing this?
I don't know. It's good though. It's impressive.
It's honestly impressive, right? Okay. I hope the listeners are impressed. I'm impressed. Jump rope. When I was thinking about this is actually the first thing I wrote down. One, bias. I love jump rope because I'm good at it. Also because Rocky. But honestly, when I'm thinking about it, it's I wrote the easiest. It's probably not the easiest, but it might be, like, in the grand scheme of things, if you're working with a Gem Pop client, like, this might be the only plyometric you ever need. Like, I think that you could get away with just jumping rope and do a ton for their plyometric ability. So their ability to utilize the stretch shortening cycle, their strength of their Achilles, well, along with like heavy strength training and things like that. Like, I think you can go a long way in prepping them for life with just jumping rope. But I think it does a lot of good things. First and foremost, it's cheap as hell. You can get a jump rope for like $10, $20. It teaches rhythm, coordination, and timing, which I think is something that we, for the general population, don't do a lot of. And I think it's just an important skill to have generally, like, just to be generally athletic for life. And if you're bad at it, it's pretty self-scalable, right? So if you're either too weak and can't handle the eccentric load of landing, or if you're just like not super elastic to start, it self-scales, right? As you get better at those qualities, you get better at jumping rope and you can do it more, right? So I like that aspect of it. And we talked about razzle dazzle. We talked about getting spicy on the last episode, but I think there's a lot of ways you can add meaningful variability. You can move forward and backwards while jumping rope. You could run in place while jumping rope. You could jump on one leg. You can jump on one leg side to side. You could do the old crisscross applesauce. You could double dutch one time on them. At a point in time, I could double dutch. You know, you get in there, bro. Jump in the Disney Channel original movie with Corbin Blue.
Oh my
goodness! What I'm saying? But so that had my ass in the streets, bro, on the ropes. Said if my guy Corbin can do it, I can too. So jump rope. That's my number 2 underused equipment.
I like it, and it's a very it gives immediate feedback, and you don't got to say anything.
Immediate feedback.
You're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You're not doing it right.
You're
I
gonna
don't have to tell you that.
Yeah. That's wow.
Right?
That's a great point.
And if you are doing it right,
yeah,
you're jumping. You're doing it right. Right. So I think less words are better. Use a jump rope. Coach yourself.
Yeah.
I like it. Honorable mention.
Oh,
honorable mention. That
my honorable mention.
Let me. That's on my honorable.
That's on your. Oh, I thought we were ripping. Dude, I thought I was like, bro, I'm gonna pull out the list. No,
I didn't have a list, but now it's on there. So
there you go. Honorable mention. It's good.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think sometimes we get too cute as coaches, right? It's like, if someone can't jump, you talk about the immediate feedback. Like if someone can't jump rope, then it's like, well, I'm going to do some ISOs for the tendon. I'm going to do some heavy strength stuff. I'm going to teach them how to land. I'm going to pogo in place. It's like, nah, you could just keep jumping rope. Like you could jump rope slow, then you could do it a little bit faster. Then you could do a little double bounce. And then, you could do like a little more volume. Like you could just jump rope and probably get better at jumping rope and get better at plyos. Like sometimes we don't need a crazy progression. You could just do the thing to get better at the thing.
Get better.
I think jump rope, like keeping it super simple. I think jump rope's one of those things. Like if you're like, I don't know how the hell to coach plyos. I don't know. I don't want to do all these crazy jumps. People don't want to jump. You can just jump rope in your warm up a couple times a week, and you'd probably see some remarkable improvement in their jumping abilities in a relatively short amount of time. Again, I don't think it's great for everything. Like it's not great for ESD. You don't want the calves, the Achilles to be the limiting factor for your ESD work. So, it's not going to solve all the world's problems, but I think it's a tool that I don't see being used a lot. I think people could probably grab it a little bit more. Go into the program a little more.
It's on TikTok a lot, though. I see some cool things on some jump rope stuff.
On TikTok. Are they jump rope in the songs?
Yeah, there's like some jump rope sports. I don't know.
JT, you're on TikTok. You're on TikTok.
I'm like 7 years old, man. Come on,
bro. You're on TikTok.
I'm not.
If you're on Threads, you're on TikTok.
I love that flow chart they got. That's my train of thought.
Like, let's think critically, and then I just say things that don't make any sense. There's no thought behind that comment. Just saying whatever.
I'm gonna add trampoline on that for some, and we're gonna talk about that one maybe another time. But trampolines are underrated. Probably not even rated. So, my number one. We ready for it?
Just say, is this your number one, or are you just having an epiphany?
No. Epiphany. You ready for it?
Okay, I like it. Ready? Hit me with number one. No honorable mentions.
I didn't have a list. I'm sure I could have a list of them, but because all the things I would have as an honorable mention are rated, like a kettlebell.
That is rated. Rated.
Barbell. Rated.
It's so, rated. Okay. Rip it. Number one. I'm excited.
All right. This might be I feel like people will call this a cop-out. Whatever. You ready for it?
I'm ready for it.
An empty room. An underrated piece of equipment is an empty room.
Let me make sure. I don't think it's not a cop-out. Let's check the notes. Let me hit the notes. It's on my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Open floor space. Open floor space was an honorable mention.
I'm gonna bucket these into two things: a large space and a small space. Both underrated.
Okay.
I think the small space is probably more underrated. As a young coach myself, I'm like, I don't have shit. I don't have any equipment at all. What am I gonna do? I got 15 people. So looking back at it, actually what I had to do is adapt and figure some stuff out, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why I would say it's underrated and the value that I see in it now is for that reason, right? I think in hindsight, it improved my creativity. Right? I had to really think about what I'm trying to achieve and how do I do that without any equipment? Because there'll be times where you don't have equipment. There'll be more people than there are things to use as equipment. At that point, like, now what do I do, right? So then I had to really think of what am I actually trying to do? Am I trying to, is this TRX row here just as for my people to do a TRX row, or is it to improve some pulling positions, right? Or am I trying to pull this on this exercise or the station, whatever you want to call it? So it had to really, it allowed me to peel back the layers of why things are in my program in the first place to now utilize equipment the way I want to, as opposed to having equipment use me. There's a better quote I could put in there, but small space, large space, underrated in the benefits of it.
Okay. Damn. Yeah, that was I like it. I like the rationale. It was my honorable mention list. I didn't put it because it's technically not equipment, but I didn't put equipment for my overuse. So I'm gonna we're letting this fly. This is our podcast. We can do whatever the hell we want. That's good. No, I think so many, like, now, like, building a gym in my basement and like thinking about if I was to build my perfect gym, like, space is probably the biggest. Like, I just want to be able to move, right? I just want to be able to do whatever. Like, I can jump, I can do whatever movements I want to do. I can run around, I can, walking lunge, like whatever. Or if you have a group environment, like, I think it's beneficial to have that much space and be able to do what you want. But then also, like you said, like, there's an inherent benefit to like having a lot of weird constraints, for lack of a better term, on your environment. Like, it really does make you a better coach. Like, you learn how to navigate basically anything. If you can coach in a small ass gym with little to no equipment, 20 people, and get a good actual, like, meaningful workout in and progress towards something, like, you can do anything. Like, legitimately, I think you can coach anywhere and coach anything with time. Like, that's like the school of hard knocks, in my opinion, right there. Like, it's and thinking about all the corporate gyms I've been in, the best ones have the most space. Like, bar none, the best corporate gyms I've been in have the most space, for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. I really, now that you're saying that, I really want to interview like one of the coaches who were stuck in the bubble. Not stuck, but had the opportunity to go to the bubble in the during the NBA season in Disney World.
Disneyland World.
I listened to a lot of interviews where, like, I think they had 0 dumbbells or some dumbbells, and that's about it compared to a weight room they used to be in, which had all the things in the world. So here's to hear their experience.
Right, but that's another thing. It's like sink or swim, right? We got to make this go.
Yep.
We come on the other side better. Again, knowing that you probably take a couple of L's in the process, but that's how you learn.
That's why it's called an L. You learn.
That's why it's called an L. Your Sesame Street ass. All right. Honorable mentions.
Oh, man. What you got?
Honorable mentions. I got a big list. I'm going to make sure I don't retread. GHD machine. I like that. I like that a lot. Sandbags. People forget. Ooh. Smith machine, like you said, my honorable mention. Hip thrust machine. It's just a banger. I'm too lazy to set up hip thrust on a barbell. I'm not rolling those plates out. I'm not putting those plates back. Hip thrust machine.
I like it.
Weightlifting shoes. Everybody talking about the wedge. Baby, get you a pair of Nike Romaleos. Let's scrap up.
Romaleos? Is that how you pronounce it?
Is that how you say it? I don't.
I would say Romaleos.
Romaleos?
Yeah.
Man, we can edit that in post. We'll cut that out.
If you don't got the kicks, hit the wolf wedge though.
Hit the wolf wedge if you need. Listen, I'm not hating on the wolf wedge. But I'm saying weightlifting shoes. People sleep. They're so stable. They're so strong.
That's true.
Belt and straps. I think they might just be rated. I know the pendulum has now swung back on straps for a similar reason. Not similar reason, but like, I guess somewhat similar to what you said about the Smith machine. Like, if our goal is to train the lat and not train our grip for a specific exercise, then let's use straps. Or if the goal is to train our legs and not our grip for like a deadlift, then we can just use straps.
Okay.
Weightlifting belt is another one that's probably just rated. And then
they all can be overrated though, for sure.
Yeah. That's kind of why they were like, I'm like, are these rated? Are these underused? Sure. Depends on who you're talking. If you're talking to the gym bros, or are you talking to the movement culture people?
Sure.
what crew are you talking to? But number one, most underused piece of equipment. You said TRX was your number one overused. I said it's on something similar for my number one underused, and that's going to be a set of rings.
Okay.
A set of rings. My CrossFit's showing. Then I don't care who sees it, JT. No. So right. Outside of a CrossFit gym, you will not find rings.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I'd agree.
So they can do all the things that TRX can do, which is basically just TRX row. But you can do way more things.
Mm-hmm.
These will smoke your wrist, though, so I fully understand. You don't like them. But for me, it's just like a whole new world of movement variability. And a whole new avenue of mastery and training and play. Like, I think the rings allow you to do so much, especially for training the shoulder, for training upper pushing patterns, whether that's dips or push-ups or push-up variations, whether that's progressing towards like a strict muscle up, whether it's, doing different pull-up variations or false grip pull-up variations. If you're super freaky, doing something like a handstand on the rings, which is insane. Different L-sit progressions, things like that. I'm on a big gymnastics wave right now, and it's something that I again, fully understanding my biases, I like it because I'm pretty good at it. And it's just kind of fun to progress. But for me, I think people think about upper body, like body weight pushing stuff, or just body weight moves in general, right? It's like push up, pull up, row, right? But then bringing in the rings brings in this whole different avenue of movements that you can do. But they're far from beginner movements. Like, this is all pretty advanced stuff for the most part.
Go hit that iron cross. Okay. I don't know enough about them to really comment. Again, more questions than anything, but I like it. I'll use more.
Just making you think. But yeah, rings. At the very least, rip some ring dips. You'll come out on the other side a different person.
Okay. Because, there's a lot of things in there that you can do that you can't do on the TRX. I think that's where I'm like,
yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. So rings for me, underrated. They're cheap. They're portable. They're easy to use. Again, we talked about it in the last episode. TRX can be like $200. You can get a set of rings. You get a cheap set of rings for like $40. You can get a Rogue set of rings for $100. Rogue, sponsor the show. Send your boys some rings. JT doesn't have any. Get him some ASAP so he can do a full review. But I think it's just something that it's a great tool to have. And it's great in place of something like a TRX. I think it's probably better than a TRX, in my opinion.
I like it because in the previous episode, I put TRX as overrated, but also TRX being underrated in the sense of how portable it can be and how our clients can essentially bring it to them during any vacation or anywhere they don't have access to a gym. So I'd rather have I changed my answer. Rings would be the underrated. So, I like it. That's a good list. That's a good list. I like it a lot.
Dave, we got some good stuff. We got some good stuff going in there. Any takeaways you hope people get from this?
Again, just look at your program. Create a underrated and overrated list of exercises and equipment yourself. I think that's the biggest point. You don't have to agree with what we're talking about, what we say. Although I'd love to hear what you disagree with, but just remove the biases, right? Just if the
Yeah.
pendulum swung and you're like, oh, I didn't know I swung with it. All right, let's bring it back. Right. So let's understand where things fail in your program, why they're there, and reassess. If they belong there, if they still belong there, perfect. If not, they're like, okay, it's overrated. Don't need it there. So that's the biggest point, right?
Yeah, and we still, I mean, JT and I both get swept up in the hype sometimes, right? Like it's hard to not get swept up in the hype with things sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, if that happens, it's all good. Like, it's going to happen. It's a part of its own. I'd say probably human nature. But like JT said, if we can pause, be objective about what we're doing, and either ourselves or have someone else objectively assess, you know, is our time better served elsewhere, then we could write better programs and damn good programs that actually get at what we want them to be getting at, right? We're training the qualities, we're training the thing that we want to be training. And that, at the end of the day, that's the end all be all, right? That's why we're here.
That's why. Love it. Pushing performance.
JT, where can people find you?
On IG, coachjt.mp3, and also on Threads. Been messing around over there, so find me out there.
Knitting.
Threading.
Getting your mind away.
Flaking the eyebrows, bro. People still say that. What about you?
You are 70. Did you say that on this episode? Whatever. You're 70 years old. You can find me on IG at Nashville. You could find, I guess, also on Threads too.
There we go.
I don't thread as much, but I'm there. I'll throw it in a comment. You can find the show on IG and YouTube at Pushin Performance with no G. As always, if you like the show, show love to your boys how you're supposed to. Share with a friend, share with a colleague, share with anyone you think can level up. Leave us a review and a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. And shoot, we'll catch y'all next week.
Till next time. Later.
Peace.